Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So we're going to be taking a look at the Season 4 patch notes, kind of see what's changing, see some of the major balance changes, some of the changes we're going to be getting to heroes and units as well. So it's kind of going to be interesting to take a look and see what we've got. It's worth pointing out we've not quite got the full set of patch notes. I think a lot of them are still being localized and translated from the Chinese version, but we've got the bulk of the stuff, but there is going to be more stuff added, so it's going to be worth checking back, in a few more days or a week or so once they get updated with the full patch notes. So obviously with Season 4 we're going to be getting all the associated Season 4 features, so that's the 4 new units, the Janissaries, the Asaps, the Sipahai and the Sealadars. I've got separate videos on them, go and have a look at them if you want to see about the units specifically. Obviously we're getting them added in, as well as the unit challenges. It's going to be basically working in the same way as it is on Season 3. We've got the 2 new maps, which I think seem to largely be based around Constantinople, which is kind of cool. Obviously all the Season 4 Battle Pass, the seasonal levels, the seasonal challenges, the weekly challenges, the seasonal store and all the Battle Pass stuff that goes with it. We're also getting the emote system and the new Doctrine UI interface. The emote system is kind of cool. I think that's kind of a nice addition. I think the Doctrine system is mostly just a cosmetic change. It doesn't really change all that much in terms of how the Doctrine system functions. We're not getting the Doctrine upgrades that we saw in Frontier. One area that perhaps hasn't really been covered so much in any of these sort of preview events or anything is about the house challenges and house quests that are getting added in. So effectively they're going to be adding in a series of effectively like weekly house quests. They're going to refresh at midnight on Monday. And these house quests are going to be able to, some are going to be worked on as a house, so everyone's going to be doing it, and others are going to be completed individually, although working in groups. And when you complete these house quests, it's going to assign a certain amount of bronze effectively to the house treasury, and then this fund can then be sort of used as a stipend to pay to various different members and different sort of classes. So effectively it's going to be sort of separated by like senior members, knights, cadets. So effectively maybe say if some of the newer members are coming and joining your house in territory wars, there's quite a lot of cost associated with that, and now they are going to be able to use some of these house funds to help pay for unit hit losses rather than paying for it with their own currency. I think this is a nice addition, nice little way of being able to reward members for various things. I think it's going to be probably better for the newer members. I think the more experienced members can probably sort of economically support themselves better, but yeah, particularly for new members when you start to get into territory war stuff, it's pretty brutal early on and it can be quite expensive, so I think this is certainly a good addition to be added in. So moving on from a lot of the new content we're getting on and introduced to Season 4, we kind of move on to some of the Warlord balancing stuff. And there's really 2 main ones in this, and that's going to be the bow changes and the Nadachi changes. I think we were all expecting the bow changes to be introduced. I don't think that comes as a great surprise, although we did sort of half wonder whether that was going to carry over Frontier or not. So what this nerf is, in effect, is it's adding a charging skill to when using the bow. So basically all abilities other than Explosive Arrow are now going to require to be charged. So with no charge you're only going to be doing 50% of your damage, half charge 80% and full charge is 110%. And that's basically on all of the bow's abilities. Charging is going to use stamina as well. And on top of that, the Explosive Arrow has been reduced by 50% of its damage, so it's no longer going to be as powerful as it once was. They go on to sort of say a little bit about, they felt this is because bows are for long range and high damage and are hard to catch for melee heroes, so therefore they're kind of doing this as a bit of a balance change. It's kind of hard to know, without actually having the statistics in front of us, how this is effect. I mean, I certainly feel that bow is one of the stronger classes in the game, and maybe some sort of reworks is good. I feel this is quite a strong opening rework. They've done an awful lot of changes in one move, so we'll kind of actually have to see how this pans out. I feel like maybe this may be a little bit strong, too much of a rework, but let's kind of see actually how it pans out, and maybe it'll get adjusted again to sort of be reconfigured in future balance patches. Then we move on to the Nadachi, which is kind of getting a reasonable sized buff. Basically they are saying that they feel that the Nadachi is all about that lifesteal, particularly with it being a medium armor class and not a super high damage class like something like a spear, which is like a bit of a glass cannon. It's supposed to be basing on that lifesteal, but they're saying when it comes up against more heavily armoured units and it can't really do much damage, that lifesteal isn't really very effective, and so therefore it just gets killed really quite easily because it doesn't really have the high damage output and it doesn't really have the armour of a heavy armour class. So to counter that, they've basically improved the life drain over a number of abilities. Basically to the Bloodlust, they've added the effect of gaining 3% life drain, which can stack up to 5 times. And when it stacks 5 times, you basically get Bloodbath, which either will refresh the effect if you already have it, or gain 25% life drain. So they're basically giving it large buffs to its life drain ability, allowing it to sort of sustain itself in the front line a lot longer. Going to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. I feel Nadachi as a class has kind of been unloved for quite a long time now, so I don't think it's a bad thing that it's finally getting a good chunk of love. It's had a few little small buffs and here and there in other patches over the past couple of months, so yeah, I think things are starting to move in its favour. Interesting to see how it plays out. Maybe we're going to be seeing more Nadachis on the battlefield kind of over Season 4. Kind of interesting to see how it plays out. We are also seeing some small changes to Spear, basically to its Spear kick ability, which is kind of getting effectively a small nerf, and the Poleaxe weapon dance is getting a small buff. I don't think that's going to make any real significant difference though. I still think it's unlikely to be an ability that's going to be used in any real seriousness, so I don't think it's going to make any real difference to that. And the final section of the patch notes I think worth commenting on is a little section at the top that says we noticed there were flaws with our damage calculation in System 3, which enabled basically excess stacking of abilities like criticals, headshots, backstabs, etc. So they've made the following effect of putting a 250% cap on total damage bonus provided by critical, headshots and backstabs. I was kind of having a little bit of a hard time in my mind trying to think how exactly this is going to implement across the board. I wonder if it's going to affect certain classes a lot more than others. I could see it affecting dual blades and stuff a lot more, particularly when it starts to getting critical and backstabbing when it catches a warlord from behind. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. I'm not quite sure how high the percentage damage modifier they were actually getting up to. So kind of interesting to see if that's going to have any significant effect. Maybe a dual blade player, you see I don't really play dual blades very much, maybe a more experienced dual blades player or can make comment down below and let me know what they think and see if that's going to have a significant effect on them, or if it's something that perhaps is just not really going to make any significant impact. But it's not just warlords that are getting changed, but also getting quite a bit of unit balancing and optimization. Quite a few tier 5 changes to be honest as well, which is kind of interesting to see, particularly around leadership. So first up, Iron Reapers. I'm not sure how I feel about this really. They've decreased piercing defense, slashing defense, blunt defense by 10%. It's a fairly chunky nerf, as well as slowing them down. Not that they were exactly flying along at any point anyway by another 5%, but they have sort of in turn decreased their leadership from 350 to 320. I'm not sure Reapers really needed the nerf. I think a lot's changed. If you think back to sort of 4, 5, 6 months ago when, before the charging nerf, Reapers were too powerful. They could charge through, 100 units in a row. That was a bit ridiculous. But after the charging nerf, yes, they were tanky, but they lost a lot of their damage potential. And there was sort of their tankiness was what kind of made them an interesting unit. I think to start to take that away from them, I think that's sort of starting to bring them down below 1,000, then I don't know, I'm not sure that's necessarily such a good thing. I think with the amount of muskets and the amount of Pavese that there is on the battlefield at the moment, if you're not careful, the risk will be they'll start to become a pretty useless tier 5 unit. So we'll kind of have to see how those changes plan out. We're also seeing some changes, slight nerf to Monastic Knights, decrease their normal attack damage when slowed down by 15%, but again, leadership 350 down to 330. So it's going to make things, particularly once you start to get a few little crafted leadership modifiers in your armour, you're going to be able to have 2 tier 5 plus something else because of the leadership reduction cost. There's lots of others. Fire Lancers, leadership 350 to 320, no other changes. This one I'm really surprised about. They basically are saying that Tercio Arquebusiers are not actually functioning very well. I think they're an awesome unit. Leadership 350 to 310. Yeah, I'm certainly going to be putting them in my Warlord loadout, I think, because they're kind of an interesting unit and I didn't think they really needed a 40 leadership reduction. Move on to Pavese crossbows. I think we all feel that Pavese have been a bit of a scourge perhaps towards the end of Season 3 at times. So much as I enjoy playing them as a unit, they are an interesting unit. They are certainly, if not overpowered, they're certainly towards the stronger end of the spectrum. So they're seeing basically their defense knocked down by 10%, health knocked down by 10%, turn speed reduction, unit ammo from 1,000 to 750, so they're losing 25% of their ammo. And attack range is basically being nerfed from 80 meters down to 58. Although, well, I guess with manual aiming, that is going to make a difference. I think in terms of them auto-attacking. I don't think they really pick up targets at 80 meters very often anyway, so I'm not sure how much difference that will really make. Leadership is being reduced from 340 down to 325. That's not a massive nerf for them. I think that's just going to take the edge off them. I still think they're going to be quite an effective unit when they get, behind a shield wall and just pumping those arrows out. I think they're still going to be pretty effective. Now, the other big one is the Rattan Rangers nerf. So, personally, one I'm quite pleased to see. I feel that the Rattan Rangers are a real scourge of field battles and free battles, and I think they're a unit that wanted not huge nerfs, but something taking off them. The main one they've done, which I think the most important one, is the armor penetration is decreased by 15%. I think that is going to, in effect, mean that they are still going to be effective against lightly armored units, archers, anything that's sort of fairly easily killable is still going to get cut down pretty quickly. But the more heavily armoured units are no longer going to be quite so vulnerable because their armour penetration is just going to be that bit less. They're also decreasing the accuracy and extending the reloading time of their repeating crossbows, and they're reducing the amount of ammunition the unit takes by 20%. But again, like the others, leadership is going from 350 down to 330. We are seeing some changes as well to the Falconetti Gunners. I think are more of an interesting unit. I think less powerful than the Pavis in terms of overall. I think Pavis have been very useful in almost all situations. These Falconettis can be really good in certain spots, but I think on average there's as many moments where you just get caught out and get slaughtered before you really get to do anything. So to counter that, they're increasing their hit points by 10% to make them slightly more survivable, but they are putting basically a 10 meter minimum firing distance. So that means they're not going to be able to point blank shoot anymore, kind of in the same way that they were before. So that means if enemy warlords getting close, then your unit's probably going to be in trouble pretty quickly. Again, leadership 350 down to 335. We're seeing on other units, Cataphract Lancers 350 to 320, Winged Hussars 350 to 320, and Condottieri Guards also getting some change. Basically, the crowd control, the CC they're getting with their shock attack, it should no longer be affecting warlords, but it is going to still affect units. And they've decreased the leadership of that from 185 to 170. To be honest, I think they could have reduced the shock attack's ability without reducing the leadership cost. They're still a very effective unit for 185. Yeah, I still think they're going to be a dominant unit in Season 4. The only other last little section that I just wanted to touch on, which I just noticed in the optimization and bug fixes section, they did say adjusted some tasks to include alternative conditions. And they give an example. A challenge that requires players to destroy large siege equipment, which I think we'll all agree are a bit of a pain, particularly when you've got to do like 8 of them or something, would in Season 4 contain 2 conditions. For example, destroy large siege equipment or gain 50 capture points during a match. So I think that means you're going to be able to now complete that one as both an attacker and a defender. Certainly a good thing. Some of those ones are a real pain, particularly when you end up getting as the attacker, 5 times in a row and you really don't get an opportunity to destroy siege towers or battering rams or something. And they're a pain to complete even when you are a defender. You just rattle through your culverins like nothing. So yeah, certainly some good changes to see. Things like that, little quality of life improvements like that do make a difference. But anyway, that is all we have got time for today. Hopefully this has given you a decent overview of some of the main changes that we've got coming with the Season 4 update. As I say, I think a fully more comprehensive list of patch notes are going to be coming at some point in the future, so do check back. But this is going to be sort of the bulk of the stuff that's changing. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next video.